Goku is a jerk. Goku is the hero of the Dragon Ball series. Fans have called him noble, brave, and even virtuous. He never backs down from a fight and will always stand up for his friends and family. And why wouldn't he? He's the good guy. Or is he? If you take a close look at some of these episodes, you'll find Goku has a tendency to step over the line into flat-out jerkwad territory more often than you'd think. Even though he's inclined to see the good in everyone, even in his enemies, he helped contribute to his brother Raditz's murder, declining to wish him back to life. He made fun of Vegeta for defending his wife Bulma after she was assaulted by Beerus. That's really funny! He even abandons his family to further his training and abilities, and when faced with the decision of who to save in the wake of the destruction caused by Boo's kid form, he chose Hercule, or Mr. Satan depending on which dub you listen to, over his own family. While Mr. Satan ended up playing a part in defeating Boo later on, how would Goku have known that at the time? Even Vegeta called him out on that absurd decision. Could you be more stupid? While we believe a protagonist is more interesting if they have character flaws, we'd argue that Goku has stepped over the line so many times it brings into question his noble nature.
Ignoring that Raditz kidnapped Gohan in the first place, not to mention Goku trying to spare Raditz, but Raditz completely betrayed his trust. And even if Goku had wished Raditz back with the Dragon Balls, one of two things would have happened. A, he would try to, in vain, convince Goku to join him in killing absolutely everything in sight, or B, the most likely outcome, he would still try to beat the shit out of him and try to kill his ass.
As for the bit about Goku choosing Mr. Satan over his family, do I need to point out the identity of the person right next to him? That is Dende, the Guardian of Earth, or God, depending on your dub. He's kind of sort of important because he's the guy who made the Earth's Dragon Balls at the time. Oh, and he has near instant healing powers. That's kind of helpful.
Not to mention Goku actually wanted to save Gohan, Goten, Trunks, and Piccolo when Kid Buu was destroying Earth. There's even an establishing shot in dialogue from Goku stating,
"We'll grab the boys and use instant transmission."
But then Goku saw Mr. Satan and Dende standing close by, and Goku clearly thought he could save both of them.
There's even a shot of Goku trying to use instant transmission, but he couldn't do it because he was, quite understandably, too stressed about running away from the cataclysmic death ball that would have instantly vaporized him if he touched it. And he had to have been trying to use instant transmission to reach Gohan and the others because he didn't tell Vegeta to grab onto him so that he could go with. He was likely trying to use instant transmission to grab hold of Gohan and the others, wait for Vegeta to get to him while at the ready, have Vegeta grab on, and then go.
But then Supreme Kai shows up right in front of them, offering them an escape route. Goku likely weighed his options and thought that they'll all likely die if he keeps trying to save Gohan and the others. And if he and Vegeta die, the universe is guaranteed screwed. That is a really bad sign when this is the first entry of the list and there is so much you chose to leave out.
Negative energy drives Super Saiyans. The Super Saiyan form transforms members of the Saiyan race into overwhelmingly powerful beings that can wipe out their enemies without breaking a sweat. While the ability to become one was once considered a little more than legend, Goku proved its actual existence when he achieved Super Saiyan status to defeat the monstrous Titan Frieza. After Goku unlocked this ability, other male Saiyans were able to achieve at least the first level of the Super Saiyan form. And while this form is a major asset in a fight, it's the way it's achieved that is rather unsettling. Once an individual achieves Super Saiyan form, a normally calm, laid-back individual could become violent, ruthless, and vengeful. When Goku first went Super Saiyan, it was motivated by sheer anger, a direct result of the murder of his best friend Krillin. But anger isn't the only thing that drives this transformation. Vegeta was able to achieve the Super Saiyan form when he was unable to defend himself against a meteor shower. He was so driven by self-loathing and hatred at his weaknesses, it ended up triggering his Super Saiyan form. The fact that such powerful negative energies are what drive the Super Saiyan transformation suggests that perhaps the positives of the form aren't worth the struggle. It's maybe not the best message for a show meant for younger audiences.
While it's perfectly true that negative emotions help trigger the Super Saiyan form for the first time, it's been well established that it is not a negative side effect that lasts through the whole transformation. Goku and Gohan spent an entire week in their Super Saiyan forms while preparing for the Cell games. Not while going through rigorous training, mind you, but in ordinary, everyday life. The whole idea of it was to get their bodies accustomed to being in the Super Saiyan form all the time, so that they wouldn't have to waste energy powering up to fight Cell.
Plus, even before Dragon Ball Super and the Universe 6 Saiyans came along, it's shown that overwhelmingly negative energy isn't the only thing that could trigger a Super Saiyan. Case in point, Kid Trunks. If you look at the original DBZ, and even Kai for that matter, there was nothing to indicate he went through a traumatic experience to trigger him to become a Super Saiyan.
The Cell Juniors. The villain Cell comes from an alternate future timeline and was designed by Dr. Gero to be the ultimate fighter. Made up of DNA from Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, Frieza, and King Cold, amongst others, Cell has always been considered one of the more sophisticated villains in the Dragon Ball universe. When Cell manages to achieve his perfect form, he develops a number of new abilities, including one in which he can asexually produce a squad of Cell Juniors to do his bidding. Cell Juniors are similar in appearance but behave more like children, curious and mischievous. While they don't have the ability to regenerate, their power and stamina more than make up for this. In fact, their strength is considered comparable to that of Super Saiyan Vegeta and future Trunks. But how exactly is Cell producing these offspring? According to one Reddit user, the answer to this question has pretty icky implications. The theory proposes that because the twins Android 17 and 18 were absorbed into Cell, their reproductive organs could be inside of him. The notion that these siblings may have contributed in some way to the birth of the Cell Juniors is, I mean, come on. Yuck. Can we just move on to the next point?
So you're basing this theory off a Reddit user that you don't even cite in the description. GG.
Also, that theory sounds like it's either A, meant to be a sick joke because how do two humans create a miniature blue cell? Or B, something out of a hentai manga. In fact, I've had about 10 chemical showers at this point. I've lost all my hair in places I didn't even know hair could grow. And yet, I still don't feel clean.
Why do I always puke my guts out whenever something truly disgusting shows up?
I'd be more concerned if you didn't.
Anyways, it's far more likely it's because of Piccolo cells, since while they don't crap out offspring, Namekians can produce their own children by puking out the eggs without needing a partner.
Seriously, why does Samus always complain about that? It looks so easy.
How the fuck did you even get here?
Magic Cloud.
Who knew the power of boners makes you pure of heart?
Cowardly Kami. Kami is the guardian of Earth and the creator of the planet's Dragon Balls. While he did demonstrate affection for Earth and humans in general, he grew disillusioned by humanity's selfish tendencies until Goku came along and restored his faith. He liked Goku so much, in fact, that he ended up offering Goku the role of Guardian of Earth. But despite his love for Goku, when it comes down to it, Kami is kind of a selfish punk. In order to win over the original Guardian and serve as a successor, Kami had to separate from the evil inside himself. This separation brought about the creation of Kami's evil twin, King Piccolo. This connection came into play during the Cell Saga, when Kami's reluctance to fuse with Piccolo resulted in countless deaths. Isn't Kami supposed to be the Guardian of Earth? Why would it take him so long to make a decision that would ultimately save the planet? While it's understandable that Kami would struggle with the decision to give up his individuality, the fact that it takes him so long to do so seems to play against his status as Earth's great protector. In fact, Guru even goes so far as to state that if Kami had fused with Piccolo during the Saiyan Saga, the Saiyans wouldn't have held a candle to their power.
There are two factors that would have made Kami understandably reluctant to fuse. 1. If he's gone, so are the Dragon Balls. They're essentially Earth's reset button, so if something goes wrong post-fusion, which it does, there's nothing to undo all the resulting damage. 2. If he were to fuse with Piccolo during the Saiyan Saga before his big redemption through saving Gohan, how would he know that Piccolo wouldn't just use that power to take over the Earth after the Saiyans are killed? How would we know if Goku would be strong enough to stop him? But what if Kami asserts himself as the dominant personality of the fusion instead of Piccolo? Well, then the fusion wouldn't have happened. Piccolo was and still is a bit of a control freak. He would never allow himself to let go of his individuality for basically any reason. So in that sense, Kami is still far more selfless than Piccolo ever was.
Ricky, are you sure that we aren't talking about Big Green?
We never speak about Big Green. Anyways, there's also the fact that at the end of the original Dragon Ball, Kami entered the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, albeit while in a disguise, for the sole purpose of taking out Piccolo Jr., which, granted, he was unsuccessful at.
Let's also not forget about the first movie, Dead Zone, where Kami actually was fighting the main villain, Garlic Jr. Sure, he got his ass handed to him in said fight, but this just shows there was more to take into consideration than what you're letting on. This is a serious problem with not just this entrant, but also throughout many parts of the video, where you completely omit scenes that would completely annihilate your theory. That comes off as being dishonest to your audience.
Okay, we're skipping this bit here because there's not really much to talk about in terms of removing Saiyan's tails. It's perfectly logical to assume that Goten and Trunks' tails were removed as soon as possible. though I wouldn't call it childhood ruining. And there also isn't much to talk about in terms of Gohan suffering from PTSD, with the exception of one little bit that we'll be talking about very shortly.
Fans have theorized whether or not this experience, along with his rough childhood, ended up scarring Gohan more than he let on. Some have suggested the persona he adopted following his battle with the Ginyu Force, the Great Saiyaman, is his way of coping with the post-traumatic stress brought on by the encounter. It's a depressing suggestion, but it's not too difficult to believe.
No, Great Saiyaman was not Gohan's way to cope with PTSD, but more to keep his identity a secret considering the rumors of a dude with yellow hair stopping crime. That was made very clear in the series. I don't know where the hell you got that from.
Probably from Reddit, or a fan forum that they didn't bother to cite.
Super Saiyans aren't special. The legend of the Super Saiyan suggests that achieving the form is no easy task. At the story's start, the Super Saiyan form is only a legend, and no one has seen it for thousands of years. It makes sense because if you think about it, Saiyans never had to push themselves beyond their limits during their reign. When Goku first manages to achieve the form, it's one of the landmark moments in the series. A massive event with a huge amount of build-up leading up to it. But further examination leads to the realization that maybe it's not that difficult to achieve the form. It certainly takes some of the mystery and excitement out of the form when you see Goku, Gohan, and others hanging out and joking around as Super Saiyans. And while the mastered Super Saiyan form might seem impressive in theory, in reality it isn't all that special. In fact, this form's only advantage is that you can train while in it, but level 2 and 3 end up being much more powerful, despite the amount of ki energy they end up using. Let's face it, once little kids start going Super Saiyan, it takes away a lot of the excitement.
Yeah, but at the very least, Goten and Trunks had genetics going for them. Goku was already able to go Super Saiyan at the time Goten was conceived, and Trunks had the Saiyan royal bloodline and the benefits of Saiyan-human hybrid genetics going for him. Gohan and future Trunks already established in the series that Saiyan-human hybrids tend to have hidden power reserves.
Never mind too that this theory is more or less a running joke from the fanbase, like how power levels are bullshit. What else is new?
Mrs. Briefs. Mrs. Briefs, the mother of Bulma and Tights, is stunning and beautiful. Sure, she's a bit of a ditz and completely oblivious to any serious situation around her, but she always seems to know where she's going, despite the fact that her eyes are closed most of the time. Her incredible good looks have always been a source of confusion for fans. After all, she's supposed to be pushing 70 during the Majin Buu saga, but she still looks like a 30-year-old model. So, what's the explanation? Supernatural face cream? Insane plastic surgery? Or is she an android designed by Dr. Briefs to retain her good looks for all of eternity? While it isn't confirmed in any of the official lore, many fans have suggested the latter option might be the case. The implications, however, are disturbing. Does this mean that Dr. Briefs was once married to the real Mrs. Briefs, but recreated her in robot form to retain her radiant, youthful appearance? And if that is the case, what happened to the real Mrs. Briefs? Is she dead? Is her personality programmed into the android's body? And what if her personality has been trapped against its will for years and years, but has never been able to escape her husband's clutches? Suddenly, that eternal grin and sunny disposition doesn't seem so chipper now, do they?
This is just made up. Like, you just took Android 18 and turned her into Mrs. Briefs. Like, at least everything else up to this point was loosely based on things that happened. This is just, let's take Toriyama's tendency to go, fuck it, they don't know their real age, I'm not redesigning them, and turn it into something spoopy. That's it.
Hell, the only place I can recall doing that is Team 4 Star's Abridged series, which is a parody of Dragon Ball Z, meaning it's not something you should take seriously. Next thing you'll tell me is that he was Dr. Wheelo or Dr. Wello the entire— You old bastard!
Was someone just speaking about me earlier?
Hey, Mrs. Breathes, just wondering, how do you maintain your eternal youth?
Anime aging is non-existent unless it's plot relevant.
What?
Goku ruins everything. We know we're being pretty hard on Goku here. We kicked off this video by saying he's a jerk, and now we're suggesting his existence makes things even worse. Come on, guys, just say we're sorry. We like the guy, but bear with us for a moment so we can try to explain where we're coming from. As we all well know, Goku is the big hero of the Dragon Ball universe, and he's done his fair share of good deeds, including saving the planet multiple times. Despite his flaws, he's always trying to do the right thing, even when it doesn't make much sense. Sure, Frieza betrayed him more times than can count, but at least Goku tries to see the best in him, right? But what if Goku had never showed up on Earth at all? Let's face it, his being there in the first place kicked off a number of events that have only made life on the planet worse than it was before its arrival. If Goku never went to Earth, Raditz would never have gone looking for him there, which in turn would be no Vegeta or Nappa seeking out the Dragon Balls either. No Frieza arc, Dr. Gero wouldn't become obsessed with making androids, destroy him, Majin Buu would never have enough energy to get out of his cell, the turning of power wouldn't happen. Basically, anything. Without Goku, it's possible the world would be much safer.
Very convenient that even though Dr. Gero was mentioned, you guys completely forgot about the Red Ribbon Army. Without Goku there, they would have just found the Dragon Balls for Commander Red, and he would just take over the Earth. The only one that would have been in their way is Master Roshi. Granted, he's a force to be reckoned with by Earthling standards, but it's not like the Red Ribbon Army were entirely inept. Their intel would have easily figured out his weakness to women, and they would have just exploited that to take the Dragon Ball off his hands.
Plus, even if we took the Red Ribbon Army out of the equation, though you can argue Dr. Gero was creating androids before he was obsessed with killing Goku, Frieza would have caused mass genocide to not just the Namekians, but to countless other people, which at some point would have included Earth, since hardly anyone was strong enough to even stand in his way.
And what's even stopping him from just showing up at Earth at all? He was trying to conquer the universe after all.
On top of everything we just mentioned, when it comes to your bit of Majin Buu wouldn't have happened in future Trunks' timeline, Babidi and Dabura were trying to resurrect Majin Buu even with Goku being dead, and had the Supreme Kai not instructed future Trunks, they would have succeeded. I know you can argue,
well, Goku was dead, so he didn't give Majin Buu enough energy to be released.
But even so, this proves that without Goku, the Earth would have been attacked on more than one occasion.
Majin Buu represents America. Majin Buu takes on many forms, Kid Buu and Super Buu to name a few, but the first form featured in the Dragon Ball series was Innocent Buu, his plumpest iteration. The character is known for his childish, destructive personality. To him, destroying things is just a fun pastime, and he takes great pleasure in bullying others, using his massive size to overpower his enemies. His temper tends to take a turn for the worse whenever someone makes fun of him or he senses an oncoming defeat. One Reddit user, Neostorm360, did some digging and formulated a theory on how the character might represent Akira Toriyama's pessimistic view of Americans. Neostorm360 examines America's history, noting the similarities between certain events like World War II and the entire Buu saga. Instead of killing his enemies, Buu turns them into food, consuming them whole and absorbing their abilities, becoming more and more powerful, which bears a striking resemblance to the concept of American imperialism. This particular theory isn't dark so much as it paints an intriguing picture of how Dragon Ball's creator views Americans as nothing more than overweight, food-consuming bullies. Toriyama must get a huge kick out of the fact that the show has been so popular in America.
So I did some digging, and nothing I found even indicated Akira Toriyama dislikes America. What also doesn't help your argument with that Reddit user is...
Don't tell me. He didn't cite his sources again?
Exactly. So we dug up that Reddit post, which is sad that's not the presenter giving the evidence, and this guy, like with Screen Rant, doesn't even cite his sources to back himself up. Even then, his claims are really flawed, like how he doesn't take into consideration Japan provoked the United States to enter World War II, not the other way around, or how his analogy of the US Civil War is the evil side winning and being a lot stronger and more wicked when that wasn't the case, especially when it led to the 13th Amendment. I can't believe I just went political, much less historical on a fucking Dragon Ball Z theory list, but here we are.
The post also claims that Majin Buu just eats people instead of just killing them outright as an example of US imperialism, when there's footage of him killing people outright. Not to mention, if eating people grants him their abilities, then why doesn't he have Dabura's ability to turn people into stone by spitting on them? Again, nowhere in that post does it indicate that Toriyama has a pessimistic view of America.
Also, something to factor in the context of the Buu saga especially, is that after Super Buu absorbed Grand Supreme Kai, it not only took on his appearance, but also you can make the argument that his spirit was the reason behind his childlike attitude was because of Grand Supreme Kai's personality. Since also excluding Super were,
Can we just get into final thoughts before we get turned into sweets by Majin Buu's head penis?
meh, sure. Besides, there's not much left to comment on after that anyways. This has the exact same problems I see with a lot of popular countdown makers like Watch Mojo, next to Ken when he was doing audio countdowns, and even What Culture to an extent. Weird choices, weak reasons, even worse examples. I could go on, but we'd just be playing countdown curse bingo. The main thing I want to bring up is how you omit details of scenes to try and make it seem like your theory has any kind of possibility when anyone who has seen the show would know how flawed it is. And it comes off as being incredibly dishonest to those that have not seen Dragon Ball because of the missing context. If you're going to present theories, never cut out stuff that would wreck it. That is what people should take away from this.
So I recently watched Deadpool 2. It was funny and an even better movie than the first one, with great humor and a better plot narrative. And so, I decided to check out Doug Walker's Nostalgia Critic Deadpool 2 video. It was terrible. Now, I'm a pro #ChangeTheChannel movement, and I stopped supporting Doug Walker after the atrocities he and his co-workers and especially manager had done to their fellow Channel Awesome members. But seeing the overall negative reception his Deadpool 2 video has gained, I had to check it out.
Where is your proof on the Nostalgia Critics Deadpool 2 review getting backlash? Yes, I'm aware of the #ChangeTheChannel movement and the Not So Awesome document, which you're for. But maybe, just maybe, after his review of the Beauty and the Beast remake, the reason why his later episodes have been getting more dislikes than normal is because of that, and not because of the video's quality.
Not to mention that if you look at the like to dislike ratio of the reviews made after the change of channel movement happened, their dislike ratio is either similar to that of his Deadpool 2 review, or in some cases much higher, such as those reviews on Woody Woodpecker and American Tail 5-0 Goes West, and especially his Jack and Jill review. Now, granted, other reviews getting more backlash doesn't necessarily mean that the Deadpool 2 review didn't get any, but considering that the like-to-dislike ratio of his Deadpool 2 is at least similar to that of his recent reviews, I fail to see how this review specifically got such a negative reception.
Now don't worry, I didn't watch it on his YouTube page. I used a loophole technique to watch it without contributing to his viewership, which basically is copy and pasting his link to a video download system.
How can you say his Deadpool 2 review got a negative reception if you didn't watch it on YouTube? There may be other websites or platforms you could have seen this on, but you only said you downloaded the video, which can be done without opening the link itself. Not only that, but if you've seen the like to dislike ratio on that review, you'll see that there are much more likes than there are dislikes. Granted, these are from June instead of May, which is the month your response was uploaded, so this isn't the most concrete of evidence. But guess who also forgets that evidence?
But before we go, let's go back a bit to his review of the first Deadpool video to see what he thinks of the character.
What I know about Deadpool, which actually isn't much. Every time I go to a con, there's like a million Deadpools, so I know he's a really popular character. I know he's aware he's a fictional character, so there's a lot of fourth wall jokes. I know he's like an action hero who can't play, or kind of an anti-hero, and he does a lot of comedy because he knows he's a character, and he like can get shot and either doesn't feel the pain or heals up or something like that. Even I'm still not entirely sure. And he has a thing for chimichangas. That's about all I know.
So right off the bat, he barely knows anything about the character, or why he's popular. Now this was when the first movie came out, so one would say he learned more about him in the meantime. Let's find out.
Was this really necessary? Yeah, he hardly knew anything about Deadpool. 2 years ago. A fan's gotta start somewhere, and they're not going to know everything about the character right off the bat. Something which you even acknowledged at the end of your point. If you want to show that he doesn't know much about Deadpool now, then that's fine, but showing a 2-year-old clip from when he hardly knew anything about the franchise doesn't help your argument, since people can learn a lot about a franchise during that time span.
Oh, wait a minute. What's with this description? Saddle up your unicorn? I'll admit, I'm not the most hardcore Deadpool fanboy out there, but when I think of Deadpool, unicorns are not the first things that comes to mind. As far as I know, no one ever refers to him as the self-aware comic book character from the 90s.
Really? You went on a small tirade over the description, which in this case was a nitpick on your part. One could argue that the unicorn part is a reference to the ending credits of the first Deadpool movie, which showed a 2D Deadpool stroking a unicorn's horn and rainbows was coming out of it.
Wait, were you implying that the unicorn was...
Yes. Yes, it was.
Oh dear.
Ignoring how Wade has been seen with a unicorn in multiple scenes, the reason why unicorns are associated with Deadpool is because of the comedic irony. The main character is a foul-mouthed mercenary who, in the first movie, carried all of his weapons in a Dora the Explorer backpack.
To top everything off, the video's description is not wrong, because even if people don't refer to Deadpool as the self-aware comic book character from the 90s, it isn't inaccurate to call him that because it fits Deadpool to a T. Think about it. He's a comic book character who's self-aware about the medium and originated in the 90s. So in the end, this really was a non-issue.
If he's familiar with the character, then he'd go with something like load your guns, sharpen your bee authors, and keep your chimichangas hot. The Merc with the Mouth is back. We haven't begun the video, and we already had something to complain about.
It's not what I wanted. It's not what I wanted. It's not what I wanted. It's not what I wanted.
I'll spare you ears the rape that is his music, and just go with these selected parts, with more appropriate music. A penis with a little hat on. Well, as one tweet once said, he was always a dickhead, now he looks the part. Written by man children. Well, at least they're honest for once. Intro by someone who loves Deadpool, and will destroy your opening credits if you say even one bad thing about him, you son of a bitch. No, you're not. If you love Deadpool as you claim to be, then the foul things we're looking at later should reflect it. And yes, I will say bad stuff about you, you egotistical jerk. And yes, I said testicle, you dick.
Okay, to be fair, I could see the first two interjections just being you taking potshots at the Nostalgia Critic, but that third interjection, not only does it come off like you're taking the joke dead seriously, but you didn't even get the joke. Doug Walker didn't make the intro card. That text was supposed to refer to the Nostalgia Critic, since he's the one who's going to say bad things about Deadpool 2. Basically, the guy who made this intro is saying that if the Nostalgia Critic says anything bad about Deadpool 2, then he will destroy the opening credits. So, not only were you missing the point of the joke, but you took someone else's words and acted like Doug was the one saying them.
I am the way your son don't need a gun to get respect up on this.
By the way, Shinobi's going to be cutting out context here and there to save time or something. We'll address it when this is an apparent problem, so yeah, this is just a heads up.
Yeah, I'm Deadpool, I'm Deadpool, I'm Deadpool, I love chimichangas, I'm Deadpool.
And as you probably figured out, that means we have to put up with asshole cosplay Deadpool. That guy at every convention who thinks he's really funny because he has a Deadpool cosplay, but he's really just an annoying dick.
First joke, and already fails for the sole reason it was already used in his Green Lantern video.
And how is him reusing a joke he used roughly a year ago inherently a bad thing? Especially since I had to go out of my way to find the video you were referring to just to see what the hell you're even talking about, since you didn't even bother to put the link to it in the description.
Seriously, why is this an issue? Doug reuses characters all the time in his reviews. Some examples being Malice and the Mad Hatter, Hyper Fangirl, Benny the Assassin, and Devil Boner. Now, if you had an issue with Doug doing this stuff in general, then that would be fine. But later in the video, you say that you liked Doug's Devil Boner character.
I am Cable Boner.
Classy. Actually, I like it. I like Devil Boner character. Too bad it's played by Doug.
Which is especially confusing since he's one of the most reused characters. So why is this instance of Doug bringing back cosplay Deadpool so bad?
But reusing characters and reusing jokes aren't the same thing, you might say. Not only have both characters and jokes been reused on the show, for example the Stephen King drinking game and Angry Video Game Nerd leaving his boxes, but cosplay Deadpool is a character, a one-dimensional character, but a character nonetheless.
To add to this, running gags has been in hundreds, if not thousands of works before. The issue should not be whether or not Doug used these jokes, let alone these characters before, but the execution of them.
You know, honest trailers got Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, wow, you're right. Well, why don't you use your clout with the crossover you did with them to get Reynolds?
Well...
I don't know. Maybe because of this, and the fact that you protected a sexual predator that showed that you are a piece of filth that no one wants to be associated with anymore?
Not so fast, dumb devil, you're the Lion King. Everybody's killing the White Lion.
Okay, I want to make something clear. I have not seen a single Rick and Morty episode, so I'm not going to pretend I know everything about it, unlike some person. But I did have some experience with this fandom, and they are terrible. I'm sorry, but you're going down the history for this embarrassing historical moment.
Are you the Rick? Rick, I'm Tickle
I'm not saying that no fandom is without their toxic parts, but you guys make the Sonic fanbase look at you and say, you're going too far. So thanks a lot for sending the geek culture standings 40 years back, and just to confirm that you're a bunch of man-children. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant people-children. You don't want me to assume their genders or anything, right?
Hey, Shinobi, baby, darling! What does your tangent about the Rick and Morty fanbase have anything to do with Doug's skit? Your tangent here doesn't criticize anything about the intro skit or the review in general, so again, why is this relevant? Are you trying to say that the joke is bad because the Rick and Morty fanbase is bad? Because that's the only logical connection I can see here. If that's not what you're trying to say, then your point here is merely irrelevant. But if this is what you're trying to say, then your point just makes no sense. The quality of a joke is not determined by its fandom, it's determined by the execution of the joke. Because by this logic, I guess Star Wars references aren't funny, purely because the fanbase likes to harass the actors. I guess jokes about Sonic aren't funny, just because of its fanbase. The list really goes on, and I don't think you want to go down this rabbit hole.
Guess who's using an action figure as an avatar and jumped the gun? All the characters at that moment were about to address how a bunch of movies have done what the Deadpool movies did. Later on, they do talk about fan bases, including the Rick and Morty fan base, coming to the conclusion that more people focus on the bad side of the fan base instead of acknowledging the good. Now, doesn't that sound familiar?
And by the way, the Lion King ripped off Kimba has been long debunked and is no longer a matter of discussion. And if it hasn't been debunked yet, it's still a toxic topic to discuss, like how the Pokemon fanbase prefer to avoid the Ash vs. Red discussion because it's that bad and it's not a fun thing to discuss.
Well, ignoring how you don't bring up any evidence to back up your claim of The Lion King not being a Kimba the White Lion ripoff, this point would have been okay if you didn't follow it up with, oh, it's a toxic topic, therefore it shouldn't be discussed. Just because a topic is typically not fun to discuss, that doesn't automatically mean it should be off the table. Nor does that mean that nobody can have a civil and fair discussion about it, especially if it happens to relate to the review at hand.
And allow me to ask this one simple question. What's the point of the Rick and Morty parody here? If we're talking about a funny superhero, could you bring a character like Freakazoid? At least he's similar enough to evenly match Deadpool, unlike a Doc Brown knockoff.
Even though one can make the argument that Doug was using Rick to present one side of the argument regarding Deadpool 2. Don't get me wrong, the skit itself I think is cringeworthy as all hell, but at the same time, it's not that hard to see what Doug was attempting to do here.
Also, bit of a nitpick here, but Freakazoid is in the review.
I'm in the film now!
And when he does pop up in the video, you don't even mention it, so...
Not only is this a big oversight on Shinobi's part, Rick would still be the better choice to call Deadpool out. While both characters are aware of the fourth wall, Rick is the only one to point out and criticize whatever tropes are flaunted. Think of it this way. Who would you take more seriously in a discussion? The scientist that consistently points out tropes and cliches? Or Dr. Draken doing his best impression of Woody Woodpecker? Now that I think about it, you never did show us what Rick was talking about, didn't you? Now what do you say we just...
So let's get this podcast with sketches started. I assume you want to talk about my impact on R-rated comic book movies, box office growth, and groundbreaking fourth wall humor in the same sentence?
Well... Not so fast, dumb devil, you're the Lion King, everybody's Kimba the White Lion.
Oh, you cut out context that would make Rick even more necessary to the discussion. Since Rick would be the only fourth wall breaker, to my knowledge, that would call out DP's inaccuracy.
You think you're this big groundbreaker and you're not. There's other R-rated comic book hits, other R-rated comedy hits, and literally hundreds of fourth wall breakers before you.
While he's not wrong about other R-rated comic book movies or wall-breaking comedy movies, he also forgot the fact that Deadpool is a Marvel comic character, as in one of the most popular comics of all time, unlike the more cult-following comics he gave as an example.
Even though they were talking about movies specifically. By your logic, Blade came out before Deadpool in both film adaptation and comic form, and Deathstroke, the character DP is a parody of, came before Ninja Spider-Man in the comics, obviously. The Hulk, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and the X-Men may not have debuted before The Merc with a Mouth, but they did get their own movies before Deadpool.
Hell, going by the Marvel character thing you just said, that would even include the Punisher as well, since he's a Marvel character too. Not to mention, even if we were to argue the time their comic books came out, Blade came out in 1973, while the Punisher started a year later as an enemy of Spider-Man, and then had his own series in the 1980s, predating Deadpool by about a decade. So in that regard, Rick is not exactly wrong here.
As opposed to any again. Another thing we forgot to mention was that even though Blade and Sin City and whatever are obscure R-rated comic book movies, they're still R-rated comic book movies. It shouldn't matter how famous Deadpool is or what company he's from. So this is basically dodging the point.
Okay, you're right, every fanbase has a few bad apples, and it's not the majority. But that doesn't mean you're still not a one-trick unicorn.
If Deadpool was a one-trick unicorn, then A, he would be an obscure character, and B, his second movie wouldn't be another hit in his cinematic run. You fail!
Okay, first off, can you please stop taking his Rick and Morty strawman at face value? He's just using these characters to play devil's advocate. In other words, he doesn't actually believe the arguments that Rick is saying, he's just using them to present possible counter-arguments to Deadpool's popularity, all of which he debunks and presents rebuttals to at the end of the review.
The Deadpool movies are worthy of their attention, and the mixing of two totally different genres, both done well, makes them a very different and enjoyable new experience. We've seen these elements before, but not together in this way, and as long as they keep finding new things to add to them, my guess is these movies will be celebrated for quite a while.
Secondly, something could still be considered a one-trick unicorn while still being successful. For example, the mainline Disney movies that were made before Princess and the Frog have been heavily criticized in the past for having very similar stories revolving around a heroine who wants a more extraordinary life and ends up finding true love after fighting a cartoonishly evil villain. And with some exceptions like Sleeping Beauty and Pocahontas, the movies that followed this formula generally did very well. Also, since he later used video games as examples to try and counter Doug's points, there are plenty of video game franchises that have been criticized for releasing the same game over and over again that have been doing well for years. Like Pokemon, Dynasty Warriors, Mario, Zelda, Assassin's Creed, and especially Call of Duty.
The comic book character created in 1991, Deadpool got a following as one of the few Marvel comic book characters to be aware he's a Marvel comic book character. He was foul-mouthed, violent, funny as hell, and constantly broke the fourth wall.
Notice that he didn't even mention the guy who, quote-unquote, created him, Rob Liefeld, or the fact that he's a ripoff of DC's Deathstroke all the way to his civilian name. Nor the fact that despite our old pal Rob being the one who created him, it was thanks to other writers like Fabian Nicieza that gave him his fun and memorable personality.
Have you seen Green Scorpion? I bet you'd like his content because you want Nostalgia Critic to go in immense detail. Not everybody needs to be a walking encyclopedia. All we need to know is who Deadpool is, what he does, and where he came from. And the critic did just that. We don't need to know who created Deadpool or how he was created, since that's essentially giving us Wade's life story.
Things even a casual Deadpool fan should know, and yet he failed to mention them.
And you failed to avoid stuttering.
Doing retakes? Pfft, that's crazy talk.
But again, we've seen characters like this before, so what makes him not only such a long-lasting hit, but worthy of such a dedicated following? What is he doing with his fourth wall breaking that sets him apart from other fourth wall breakers?
Gee, I don't know. Could it be marketing the persona of an anti-hero who acts like a kindergartner but with a team of underpaid writers that's successfully convinced us they wouldn't want to punch him in the face?
How about if we let the man himself answer this question without sounding like a condescending idiot, shall we?
The thing about Deadpool, I think, that makes him so widely loved by fans everywhere is he's like a real person. He's not like some fictional hero. He talks the way regular people talk. He thinks the same way. He's as disrespectful as most people are. You never know what he'll say or do next. He's like a guy you wish lived next door to you and would be your best friend, because it would always be a lot of fun being with him, and there'd always be a lot of unexpected surprises. The best kind of guy to write about or have movies about.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Does this really debunk what Doug said, though? Both Doug and Stan Lee are saying that Deadpool appeals to the basic immaturity and disrespectful nature that people have. Yeah, Doug said it in a much more condescending way, but that was while he was playing a character that's supposed to be disrespectful and condescending. So again, this comes off like you're taking his Rick and Morty strawman completely seriously.
It opens with Deadpool as an assassin for hire who...
Whoa, really blowing the budget on this one, aren't you?
What? It's a decent-looking city.
Yeah, I'm clearly on top of a building. All one of three dimensions are clearly being explored here.
Deadpool got a point here. This set looks so cheap as if the people behind it didn't have the budget for it. By the way, what happened exactly to the almost 90k you got from that Indiegogo campaign?
Go! Well, my job's done. I hit the on button. Alright, catch those fish, boys.
Money well spent.
Whether or not you think Doug's self-deprecating jokes worked here, it doesn't really have anything to do with the Indiegogo situation from a long time ago. Don't get me wrong, I thought that campaign was questionable as well even back then, but at the same time it felt like you only brought it up for the sake of a potshot.
As for the point about Indiegogo, Channel Awesome has reviews from more of its staff, news about everything nerdy with the Orbit Report, vids showing how some of the channel's props are made, bloopers, and even countdowns. Most of the Channel Awesome content aren't remotely similar to that clip you just played.
That's like the oldest trope in the book. You really think that writer's this talented? You're already shot, aren't you?
Bop!
Okay, this is one of the parts you either agree or disagree with, but I didn't mind Vanessa's death in the movie that much. Maybe because I'm not used to Deadpool having a girlfriend, so it's not like Spider-Man where he's famous for his countless relationships. Burn in hell one more day.
I find it hilarious that you got on Doug's case for knowing jack shit about Deadpool, yet if you even did a simple Google search, you would see that in the comics, Deadpool had plenty of relationships. Besides Vanessa, you also had Siren, this bloated alien named Orxa, and yes, even Death.
Wait, he actually had sex with...
Yup.
Was me! Typical Middle Eastern European American gangster joke.
I call bullcrap on this joke. My memory of the movie is still fresh, and I don't recall the gangster's ethnicity even been mentioned. So this joke is terrible and tasteless.
But what if the hitman's ethnicity was hinted at instead of outright saying he was European? Did the hitman have an accent when he talked? Are you going to give us any evidence or examples of what the hitman looked or sounded like, so we don't need to take your words with a pinch of salt? Well, at least I know the answer to one of those questions.
You're right, it needs some salt.
I don't know, the idea of Deadpool being a dad kind of sounds interesting.
Your inability to comprehend this key demographic astounds me, Morty. Deadpool 2! The days of acting like a basement dweller whose contrived environment rewarded him with ninja moves and getting laid are gone! Now the hot chick is pregnant, he's raising a baby, and he has to learn the responsibilities of being an adult. Pre-orders through the roof, baby!
Oh, you mean like The Incredibles, The Titans, Dr. McDuck, Logan, God of War, every manga that remembers that human beings can grow up and start their own families? Or every What If One More Day didn't happen to Spider-Man stories? Because guess what? People do like the idea of superhero parents. The audience grows up, and making their favorite characters grow up with them makes them even more relatable.
The key point that you're missing here is Deadpool's target demographic. Doug is saying that Deadpool's demographic probably wouldn't like the idea of Deadpool maturing and raising a family, since the reason why Deadpool is so popular is due to how his character appeals to the basic immaturity and disrespectful nature in people, which is what your earlier Stan Lee clip confirmed to be the case. Yes, there is a target demographic for films with superhero parents, but the Nostalgia Critic doesn't think that Deadpool would fit into that due to how Deadpool's fanbase likes him for his immaturity. Now, if you feel that Deadpool would fit into this demographic, this would have been a better argument to make. But that isn't what you do here. You just say, oh, there's a demographic for that, without taking into account Deadpool's demographic.
Critic, tell us what happens next.
So Deadpool befriends an angry, awkward, overweight 14-year-old boy and...
Really? What he said? Really? You skipped the part that shows how this movie handled queer couples far better than Disney and Star Wars, and even Naughty Dog by not making it a huge deal?
Yeah, wait, what?
Oh, relevance. Wherefore art thou, relevance?
So because Doug didn't bother to mention the relationship between Yukio and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, that is a problem. Why exactly? Especially since that relationship had all of, 3 or 4 scenes to it, and outside the final fight with Juggernaut and the mid-credit scene, they were pretty much just there. What makes it a big problem when it comes to this is what you'll see literally right after that.
Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yukio are a couple. End of story.
Oh. Is it part of the plot?
Not really.
Then why bring it up to begin with?
Because I guess he's on Team Yukio Teenage Warhead. Never mind that in the scenes they're in, again, outside of the climax and mid-credit scene, they added almost nothing to the plot whatsoever prior to that. That's why I said they were just there.
Actually, that does bring up a good point.
I know, I was awesome in that, right?
No, I mean the tone these movies create. The fourth wall jokes are funny, but do they get in the way of the heavier scenes?
Depending on the writing and timing. Next point.
Did you have people review your scripts, or did you not have one to begin with? All that interjection is you saying what the Nostalgia Critic was going to say later on, making this point, well, pointless.
I take it I have to watch the show to know what this is.
He's a reoccurring character, yeah. I have to stop that boy from performing the terrible crime of child murder!
How?
By performing child murder!
Russell was also this great supervillain who burns everything and everyone and not just children. Once again, an important detail changed for the sake of a joke.
Except he wasn't changing any details. From what I gathered, Cable's reason for going into the past was so that he could kill Russell in order to save his family. And since Russell is a child in the past, that would still be child murder. Just because Cable doesn't normally commit child murder, that doesn't change how his main reason for going into the past was so that he can murder a child to prevent future tragedies from happening. So in that sense, Doug's joke is still accurate.
Also, Russell killed a bunch of people in the future, including children. Cable, in this review, could have hated people being dead in general, but hated child murder just a little more to say that specifically.
Let's make up for the shitty Dark Phoenix movie we know we're gonna get!
X-Force kills the shit out of the scientists that torture the young mutants right before teaching a young mutant that it's wrong to kill the scientists.
Actually, they killed the guards, which most of them by accidents caused by Domino's slack power. Riches don't usually count in these moral debates.
You know, something you could have argued, but for some reason you chose not to, was that Doug claimed it was X-Force that was killing the shit out of the guards, even though outside of Deadpool and Domino, everyone in X-Force was already dead when they were trying to intercept the convoy Russell was being held in before the car chase even happened.
Did you forget to stay consistent or something?
Russell, I know you think revenge will make you feel better, especially because I've gotten revenge on like 1 million people, and by God, it felt great.
What is the moral of this movie again?
No idea. But killing him won't fix anything. It'll just turn you into a supervillain. A supervillain with the name Russell. And that's just uncomfortably weird.
He already got a super name, Fire Fist. But then again, this is written by the same guy who, for some reason, thought there was something funny about the name Jupiter Jones and called her Duck Dodgers, and insists on calling Neo Tom for the rest of the Matrix month. I get a feeling he forgot how it felt like when everybody at school kept calling him Doug Funny.
Well, if I can quote the critic himself, this has been another pointless moment.
Is calling Russell Fire Fist even relevant to the review? In the movie, he is specifically called Russell.
Also, can I just point out how often you take pot shots throughout not just this response, but also in your other responses to the Nostalgia Critic's Jurassic Park reviews, where you keep referring to him as the dumbass critic, or even more recently, the douchebag critic. I can understand a pot shot every once in a while, especially if it's used as a joke, but when you do it so frequently, it just makes you look like a total prick to the guy.
Let's talk more shooting!
No! I have a collar on, so I'll die for him.
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. Yeah. Kill the franchise. Yeah, sure.
Logan says hi.
Watch any good Disney movies recently?
Well, whoop-de-doo. One movie defied expectations and killed off the main character. That still doesn't change the thousands of other franchises where the main character has plot armor. Especially in comics. And since Logan is the exception and not the rule, an experienced comic book fan or moviegoer would likely not buy the idea of the main character dying.
Well, that's that. Some points I ignored because they were redundant or had nothing to comment on.
Ha 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 ha.
Irony Man. It burns!
Can we please get on to the final thoughts before Shomes melts?
Oh, fuck you, Luck. Look, Shinobi, we all agree with you that Channel Awesome shouldn't have gotten away with basically a slap on the wrist when hashtag change the channel is a hot topic. But even with that in mind, this response was poor. He either took his joke seriously or completely missed the point of what Doug was saying. What really made it worse was that it came up as you saw his video once and put together this response without checking if anything would come back to bite you in the ass later on. Really, the best advice I could give is if you do find faults with any of his reviews, watch them more than once to make sure you have a strong argument against his points, as well as have people look it over for good measure.
Well, I regret life. Okay, let me pick apart the two major issues I find with this thing. First off, there's the length. Like, I get you're an OG Spider-Man fan, but this drags on for almost 40 seconds, which could have easily been shortened by half the length. I also have issues with the second half of said song, where you decide to go baritone, resulting in the music overpowering your voice like you're living with a mariachi band. Wait, actually that sounds pretty cool. Can we have that instead of this shit show?
What's up, everybody? It's your friendly neighborhood Scarlet Spider here, welcoming you to this exciting edition of Spidey Response, the show where I prove to you that Spider-Man is awesome. Now, you're probably wondering, Scarlet Spider, where's Spider-Man? Well, he had to go on vacation, so I'm pretty much filling in for his role, temporarily. But don't worry, he'll see me again soon. Anyways, without further ado, let's take on the carnivorous carnage!
Hey Kirby, what do you have there?
Just making a scavenger hunt.
By any chance is literally any context given by Marcus about what the video is about on that list?
Scavenger hunts aren't supposed to be impossible, Key.
Besides, everybody knows that giving context is needless padding.
I'm kind of a casual Spider-Man fan. I haven't read any of the comics.
Just remember this for later. You're probably gonna need it.
Spoilers, this point isn't going to debunk anything.
But I know all the basics about the characters and storyline.
There's more to that than meets the eye, okay?
Except Nintendo never implied that wasn't the case. He was simply talking about how much he knew about the franchise.
Yeah, let's all just assume what he said and just shove words into his mouth without consent.
I'm going to die!
Even though I'm a fan of the character and I'm a big fan of cartoons,
If you couldn't already tell,
I haven't really seen any of the Spider-Man cartoons outside of a film episode of the 90s animated series ages ago, but apparently Disney had my back because they just launched a new Spider-Man animated series only 7 months after the previous one ended, simply titled Spider-Man, or Marvel Spider-Man if you don't feel like calling it Spider-Man 2017. I'm really starting to hate this common trend of reboots that share the same name as the originals, since now you have to differentiate each property using the year that it came out in. Come to think of it, that's actually the only problem I have with the DuckTales reboot so far.
They're doing that because they want to go back to their old roots. Don't you get it? God, you're so stupid.
Okay, great. Now, how's that make the lazy title not a problem? Since just because a show is going back to its original roots doesn't mean it's an excuse to come up with a lazy title, because fun fact, you can go back to your old roots while changing the title. Like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, for instance, as that anime is a retelling of the manga storyline, yet didn't use the exact same name of the original manga and anime. Or heck, what about What's New Scooby-Doo, which is just the old formula of the mystery gang going from place to place solving mysteries.
But let's pretend that a show going back to its roots means that it automatically has to have the same name. You do know that doesn't mean he has to like it, right? Just because there's a reason behind the name choice, it doesn't mean the issue magically goes away, nor does it mean he can't have a problem with it.
At first, I wondered why the creators decided to give their show such a boring and uncreative name, but after watching the show, that name has begun to make a lot of sense. The first question that I have with any new take on a beloved property is, what's the twist? In other words, what does this incarnation of Spider-Man do differently compared to the others? The answer is, hardly much at all.
You're a fucking idiot.
Great interjection, 10 out of 10. I wonder what spider venom tastes like.
We have the typical Spidey origin story, where Peter Parker is an average kid that no one understands until he gets bitten by a radioactive spider and his life gets flipped upside down. Check it out, I flipped the image on screen upside down to correspond with when I said upside down. I'm like the best editor in the world.
First off, that is Spider-Man's exact origin, okay? That's the exact same origin that we've heard over 1,000 times.
Yes, it is. That's why he said it was the typical origin story.
And for me, I never get tired of hearing that. No matter how you change it up, I'll always love it.
Okay, that's nice, but just because you like hearing Spider-Man's origin story over and over doesn't mean it can't be an issue for Nintendo to point out, since seeing the same origin over and over with nothing to twist it around can get really tiring for people like Nintendo.
Also, acting as if your personal feelings about a rock somehow makes the target's point invalid. Hi, Blaze the Movie Fan, how are you doing? When's the next entry in the Mario Pissing series coming out anyway?
Guest starring Micro Mavi!
Do you even know what happened the last time Spider-Man tried to do something different? Crap. Crap reviews. Everything was just went out the garbage can. It just went into the garbage can. That's what happened. It was bad, okay?
Examples? Like, what are you even talking about here? Since you're incredibly vague with your argument at this point, which is a problem since your viewers will have no idea if what you're saying is even correct in the first place.
Well, based off the Lado moment in your video, it looks like you're referring to the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Probably the second one since the first one didn't get crap reviews. But based off the common criticisms with that movie, I can argue that it didn't fail because it tried out new ideas, but failed because the film tried out too many ideas at once, and in the end created a clusterfuck of a film with a jumbled plot. And this is from a guy who liked Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Wow, Kirby, I didn't know you have shit-tasted films.
And secondly, I'm the best editor in the world! Look what I can do!
Spider-Man! Out of f***ing nowhere!
Making a montage that pays tribute to the 2012 Countdown community doesn't make you a good editor by any stretch of the word.
I'm going to die!
The origin is almost exactly like how it was in the 2002 movie.
Are you fucking kidding me? It's not! Oh my god, how stupid are you? Okay, the only thing that they took inspiration from the Raimi movie was the genetically enhanced spider, the homemade costume, and the fight with Bonesaw McGee. That's it! The only cartoon that took inspiration from Sam Raimi fully was Spectacular Spider-Man, okay?
You know, just because one Spider-Man cartoon took inspiration from the Sam Raimi films doesn't give the new Spider-Man cartoon a pass, as it's taking similar beats from those films, which you even admit was the case.
Ignoring the previous point about it being the origin in the comics doesn't mean he can't find it overdone. You do realize that it's possible to tell the same origin in a different way, right? and how Nintendo could have been stating how the way the show tells the origin is too similar to the way the movie did. Especially when in this case, he was making a claim about unoriginality in comparison to the film, something that Nintendo did see.
Oh my god, are you mentally retarded?
I haven't read any of the comics.
Oh yeah, that's right. You are stupid.
Fun fact, just because the person hasn't read the source material, that doesn't magically mean that the person can't bring up issues about a show based off it.
I'm going to die!
Though the movie handles the murder of Uncle Ben a million times better than the series does.
Jesus fucking Christ, what are you? Batman?
I'm guessing that you're accusing him of wanting everything to be dark and gloomy, which in that case, no, not really. You can prefer the way a character dies in one work compared to another while not wanting everything to be grim and melodramatic.
As his introduction and death are within 5 minutes of each other, and the tone suddenly switches from fairly lighthearted to super dramatic in a heartbeat. Seeing Peter struggle with his superpowers and figure out the best ways to use them is a huge part of his story and character, but within 2 episodes he's got everything figured out.
No, he's not. He's still trying to learn how to be a superhero. God fucking damn it.
What Nintendo was saying is that Peter's management of how to use his powers, which isn't inherently the same as having no struggles with learning how to be a superhero, by the way, was a big part of his character, and the reboot pretty much solved that issue within 2 episodes, thus garnered possible character development. Nintendo set this point blank, and yet it managed to somehow fly over your head.
Along with that, gonna do anything to back up that claim, Marcus? Any clips to show proof of that, or at the very least, any examples of moments where he was still struggling with being a hero? No? You're just gonna say that's the case and leave it at that? Well, guess I can just say, no he's not, he hasn't had any struggles with being a superhero, to counter your point and leave it at that, right?
Can we just say his video is objectively bad, then go home?
He doesn't always win every battle, and his superhero life is slowly taking over his teenage life.
Hold it.
Doll, why are you still here?
Remember when Marcus tried to counter Nick's point about Peter being used to his powers by saying how Peter is still struggling to be a superhero?
Oh.
And you said you could cover this better than me.
Hey, nobody asked for your opinion, Ness.
Good job, Marcus. Due to your inability to wait a couple of seconds before things get cleared up for you, you failed to notice how Nintendo acknowledged that Peter still struggled with being a superhero, just in ways other than his powers, making that previous interjection of yours even more pointless.
So now can we go home?
I probably only have half of the money in my account because of you. I'm getting my money's worth.
But he doesn't have to deal with any moral dilemmas or have his powers hurt his life in a significant way. The show focuses more on Peter's day-to-day adventures at school and fighting the occasional bad guy. This is what draws most viewers into the Spider-Man series, but cutting out most of Peter's serious struggles gets rid of a lot of the character's depth.
Yeah, everything has to be gritty and serious and super edgy. That's how I like our superheroes. Ah, fuck you. Go die in a hole or something.
That wasn't his point, you dumbass!
Punctuated. For emphasis!
His point wasn't that he wanted everything to be dark and serious, but instead that due to the reboot removing one of the elements that made Peter a three-dimensional character by having one of his most compelling character traits removed hurt the amount of depth, thus making him much less interesting of a character in Nintendo's eyes.
I'm going to die!
Another one of my favorite elements in the Spider-Man series is Peter trying to keep his identity a secret. That's a source of drama I've always been invested in, sometimes a little too invested in. Like in some of the movies, there's scenes where Peter's unmasked while standing on top of a building, and someone can easily see him if they just turned around or looked up. In my head, I'm always yelling, "What are you doing? Put your mask on!" But in the show, the secret identity thing isn't taken seriously at all. Peter takes seconds to change in and out of his costume, and nearly no one questions how similar he looks and sounds to Peter, or how he's able to be invested in the problems that Horizon High despite not being a student there. Usually, Peter changing into Spider-Man is just a joke here, which completely squanders what could be a great source of drama. Because of its lack of depth in all areas, this Spider-Man is really boring to me, and most of the time, everything he says just comes off as annoying too.
Alright, I'm gonna have to, be pretty serious here for a second. Peter is a spider! He can do whatever a spider can!
Yep. That totally debunks Nick's point. It's completely relevant to his point about no drama about hiding his identity or him being a shallow character. This is how we counter criticisms of characters, people. Give a bit of background about them and move on. Brilliant!
Wait, but Peter can't spit venom or lay eggs, so technically he can't do everything a spider can. Also, fuck you for the audio spikes, since that crap scared the shit out of me in the first few viewings of the video.
I'm going to die!
Which, once again, is disappointing considering how interesting the origin of this character has been before. Also, whenever Peter's Spider-Man, he never shuts up.
So what? You don't shut up!
Mere. That is all.
I know that Spider-Man is known for his one-liners during fights, but 95% of what he says isn't even funny. What?
That's because your sense of humor is on the level of Batman.
You know, these are coming off less as just funny quips and more you getting salty over him having a different opinion than you.
Wait, you just noticed this now?
Just about every single one of these characters can be summed up in 2 words, like Harry is the best friend, Gwen Stacy is the snarky girl, Aunt May is the caring elder, Norman Osborn is the evil dad, Spencer Smythe is also the evil dad, but they really mix things up with Raymond Warren, who's an evil uncle. Didn't see that one coming, did ya?
Then there's Doodletones, the evil mom.
Calling Doodle mom? Pfft, nice sign of bias, doll.
Most of these characters are only really here because they're recognizable Spider-Man characters, and almost all of them don't have any unique character traits or even unique designs.
Says the person that doesn't read the comics.
You do know that a series other than Spider-Man can have similarities to those traits or design, right? A reason for why it comes off as generic to him?
A lot of the adults in particular don't have any diverse features.
Probably because you're not an artist, you fuckhead.
Does he need to be an artist, since basic human design is something that most people probably know, since they could be born with distinct features like a circular face or square chin. Besides, he's a bloody reviewer, just like how you don't need to be a chef to critique food, you don't need to be an artist to critique design.
I'm going to die!
But I guess the team behind this show just doesn't want to try anything new.
Yeah, because this shit happened.
Yup. Because doing a new idea poorly in the past, which as stated before, was due more to jumbling a bunch of plot lines together rather than simply doing something new period, totally means that trying out any new ideas is a bad idea from the get-go.
This series might not even be able to pay off all the characters it sets up, especially if you consider something about the show that I'll mention later in this review. And I really don't want to have the series end, and Otto Octavius is still a short, wormy teacher instead of one of the coolest villains in the franchise like he really should be. Speaking of villains, most of them are pretty pathetic. They all get a few minutes of screen time each, and their origin stories are either never explained, or explained very briefly.
It's about Spider-Man, not supervillains, you fuck.
Psst, here's a secret that'll blow your mind, Marcus. Countless series develop characters outside of just the main protagonist. Having characters that are important to episodes be flat and uninteresting is typically a sign of bad writing.
A lot of Spider-Man's villains have a somewhat relatable backstory, or some kind of connection to Peter, so having most of them show up without any formal introduction not only alienates new viewers, but also makes the characters weaker in general.
It's like the olden days, you know, back in the old days when, you know, you had your villains as the devil himself, and, you know, you just don't need to explain all that because it's super short and all that. It's like those old cartoons, you know? Oh, don't you remember those old cartoons? Oh man, those were good times, you know?
I see you're a man from the older days when people used to use Windows XP and we had 2 twin towers. Well, let me say that some old tropes can quickly become outdated over time with advancements in writing, such as getting complicated themes in children's shows.
Where'd you get the beard from?
I'm going to die!
Spider-Man has one of, if not the best rogues gallery in comics, so to see many of the villains either be boring or leave such a little impression on me is very disappointing. But I've saved the best for last.
Aww, there's no sound of a neck crack.
Let's go.
Man, we must be in for something huge.
Let's talk about the animation.
Shut up! Shut up! And with that, I think that this will be the end of Spidey Response.
Wait, that's it? All that build-up for a media clip where you argue literally nothing? I figured you were going to continue being one of the most obnoxious people I've had the displeasure of commentating on, while continuing to make points that mean jack shit in the long run due to your inability to sit and listen to what your target is saying.
Yeah, for all that build-up, that was anticlimactic. Like Marcus, you got no sunlight to go into, you aren't going to discredit everything he says because he's not an artist, not going to get on top of your soapbox and belittle the guy because he dislikes something that you like, not going to go on one last crusade as a white knight against the evil Nintendo, not going to keep the video playing to obnoxious degrees to the point where literally watching Donut's rage mode is the more pleasing time, not going to put in a random Mia clip and play it out for too long, not going to compare him to Logan Paul for the sake of having a different opinion. Because honestly, this is kind of a letdown in comparison.
I do have a lot going on, but hopefully I'm able to put that out.
Really did it.
Yeah, enjoy the video.
Oh, congratulations! You've achieved the award of laziness by refusing to prevent the blending in of your intro with your audio. You win a puppy.
Anyways, this is complete shit. You let the audio of your intro overlap the mic audio and it sounds like garbage. Then again, the rest of your intro isn't much better. Funny, I thought I was watching a YouTube video, not a PowerPoint presentation.
Not to mention the logo just suddenly pops in, dissolves, and then you decide to just put it in again. I mean, it's fine if you want to have a logo be in your intro, but why have it dissolve in the first place if you're just going to have it appear again? You know that you can affect how long the text remains on screen, right?
Hey, you know what? Everyone is telling me, hey Nate, we had the first female Saiyans, we had the first female Super Saiyan.
Oh, hello there, blatant lack of retakes.
And now we have cauliflower, whatever that girl is.
Ooh, we also have a clear lack of any script or notes. I'm sure that won't have your video come off as a disorganized clusterfuck.
Kaya, whatever her name is, anyways, Broly with silicones. Silicones!
Jay, I wonder if this will be his main complaint with Kale's character. I sure do hope he doesn't say this over and over again in the video.
You're setting your hopes up way too high.
They said to me, Nate, this is groundbreaking. Why aren't you behind this? Because it's absolutely ridiculous. I absolutely hate Universe 6's Saiyans, okay? I hate their whole universe of Saiyans. You know why? Because they're sheep. They're sheep. Where's the Saiyan heritage? Where's the Saiyan... where's the tail?
Yeah, right, because Saiyans having tails was so important after the Saiyan saga. We all remember Goten and wait, never mind. We all remember Trunks from the wait, also never mind. Well, Vegeta's tail totally grew back from when he said it was... Oh, wait, no, never mind. You see where I'm going here?
Not to mention that the biology of the Universe 6 Saiyans have differences from that of the Universe 7 Saiyans, evident by how Kaba didn't even know that Saiyans had tails. Also, last I checked, not having a tail doesn't make people sheep.
Without the tail, then what's the difference between Earthlings and Saiyans?
Did you even look at what you edited in when you said this part? Universe 6 Saiyans are still capable of going Super Saiyan, and I'm pretty sure regular Earthlings can't do that. Unless you count Dragon Ball Online, but really, who the hell cares about that game?
Kirby, you're implying you watched this over. Anyway, even putting the Super Saiyan bit aside, the Saiyans would still just naturally be stronger. Another difference between the Earthlings and Saiyans.
You can deny that, well, the monkey form just makes them look ridiculous. It's part of Dragon Ball heritage. It's part of the Saiyan heritage. Look at this girl's cauliflower. Look at her design. She looks like some mystical belly dancer genie. Nothing to offer.
I want to see Caulifla apparently looking like a belly dancer, but now you're not showing her where it would actually be appropriate.
What are you implying, Kirby? You got a belly dancer fetish or something?
I'm gonna get you fired for this.
Anyway, nothing to offer. I mean, up to this point in time, Khalifa didn't have that much screen time. It's possible for her to offer more in later episodes, you know. Character development. It exists. Closing isn't the only thing a character can offer, you know.
And I hate Cabbage. I keep calling him Cabbage, but whatever. I hate Cabbage. Look at him. Skinny, runt. He's just a skinny runt. I don't understand why people even like that. His design is silly. Why is he wearing that armor? No one else is wearing it.
So you hate Kaba, not for anything related to his personality or development, but because you don't like his design. That reaches a whole new power level of stupidity.
This was touched on a bit earlier with Caulifla, but judging a character based on design alone is stupid because not only are you completely ignoring the personality of Kaba that exists in the show, but it's also borderline disrespectful to the writers. But hey, at least he doesn't treat people like shit any further than that, right?
You see that? Where did he even get it from?
Wait, I thought we were talking about Kaba, not Kale. Unless Kaba is trans. Or you were too lazy to actually see if you were using the right images. That works too.
Why is he wearing that armor if no one else is wearing it? No other Saiyan is wearing that armor!
And from what I can tell, neither is Kaba.
In case we haven't made this clear enough already, if you're going to show an image to refer to something, try actually looking at the screen when you edit. It's kinda important.
As for why he's wearing that armor, that was the armor the Saiyan soldiers wore in Universe 7 before Frieza drafted their race into his forces. And since Universe 6 didn't have that draft, no reason to change up the armor. Granted, that being a reason for why something exists doesn't mean you can have a problem with it, but seeing as how you gave literally no reason for why the armor looks bad, I see no reason to take this point seriously.
And as for why Kaba is the only one wearing the armor, Kaba's the only Universe 6 Saiyan shown so far to be a part of, or in the case of Renso, still a part of the Sadala Defense Force. One would expect someone in a Defense Force to wear armor. Kale and Caulifla, on the other hand, aren't part of the Defense Force. They're part of a punk gang, so odds are they wouldn't have access to the armor.
And now we got this female Broly! What a disgrace!
You know, with constantly calling Kale female Broly, I'm beginning to wonder if he thinks being a legendary Super Saiyan is the only part of Kale's character.
Remember, personality and character development / chemistry give Real Talk nothing to offer.
What a disgrace! If you can make Bardock canon by making this stupid little movie that Toriyama did, wasn't creative. Bardock just got blasted to the past and he ended up becoming, oh yeah, Samurai Jack. Funny reference.
Okay, first off, your memes are trash.
Pot calling Cuttle much?
Second, because it's a movie, Bardock is canon. Can not compute! Ah!
Ignoring Foul Jonah for a second.
Oh, screw you.
I'd like to point out the obvious by stating that Toriyama didn't even write the episode of Bardock special to begin with. The special that Toriyama made Bardock canon in his manga was from 1990, where he wasn't sent back into the past. Which, by the way, also wasn't written by Toriyama. Even then, you couldn't even get the special right. How do you do that?
But now, this female Broly just makes me sick. Why can't you just make Broly canon? You could have done that. It would have been easy too.
Yeah, it's so easy to just drag a character from a movie during the C era, explain who he is, explain why he didn't show up until now, make him an actual character and not a powerhouse who just screams Goku's name. All that while trying to keep the pacing of the arc stable in comparison to just introducing a new character and giving her this power-up without having to mangle the story/character element of the show, right?
Not to mention that Broly himself is a polarizing character, with several fans believing that he's too overexposed for his own good. Suddenly becoming a canon villain out of nowhere would make the problem countless fans have with him even worse than before.
But no, has to be a female. What goes through Toriyama's mind at night? He saw the Broly movie and the first thing pops off in his head, he should have some tits on him. Like, what the freak? Why are you thinking like that? Is this punishment? Is this to demasculize Broly?
Demasculize Broly? You've got to be freaking kidding me. You cannot be this utterly hopeless. How is it in any way doing that? Kale's berserker form is still able to completely decimate her opponent, and its freakishly large muscles as you showed in your own freaking images. And implying that Toriyama did to demasculize Broly, you idiot! May I remind you that what happens to Kale has literally no influence on Broly whatsoever?
Calm down, Jonah. We don't need you going feral on us again. We still have the rest of the video to finish after all.
Finish the video? I'll finish you before more feral joke is made.
Is that a threat?
Hey, let's skip ahead in the video a bit.
Why is he doing this stupid stuff?
I like how he hasn't given a single reason for why Kale is a bad idea beyond her having a vagina.
Jay, it's almost as if he judges characters by what they look like alone.
He would fit in great with modern PokeTubers.
That implies he would actually explain why the design looks bad.
You haven't watched many PokeTubers, have you, Kirby?
Toriyama is not a genius. I think we had it all wrong. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, he just had a team that understood him and a team that kept him in line.
You sure seem certain that Toriyama's completely unrestricted, 'cause, you know, you're totally aware of what's going on during the production of Super.
Because now we're seeing Toriyama, and you guys won't be like, oh no, it's Toei Animation's fault too. Toriyama still has weight to his name. If he don't like what they're doing, he can always get up and walk away. But no, he's all for the ride, because why? He's milking this thing. He's milking it, and you DBZ YouTubers are just slobbering it on his knob. It is ridiculous. It's disgusting.
Congratulations, your joke has evolved into an asshole. Press B to blow him up. Okay, seriously though, now you're just downright insulting other people who really have nothing to do with the topic at hand.
As for all of the other Dragon Ball tubers slobbering over Toriyama's dick, no. Even from people who like Super, several of them have criticized stuff that Super did that they view as stupid.
Cauliflower got the Super Saiyan ×2, dang it! So fast! Faster than Trunks and Goten when Super Saiyan. This is stupid. You don't skip like that.
For once, I agree with you. I also feel that Caulifla unlocked Super Saiyan 2 way too fast. And you still find ways to screw up. She didn't skip. She went to Super Saiyan 1 and then went to Super Saiyan 2.
Where's the growth? Where's the weight?
I like how you're acting as if it was a requirement prior to Caulifla that to first turn Super Saiyan there needs to be a huge emotional moment for the Saiyan, but acknowledge Goten and Kid Trunks a couple of seconds ago. 'Cause they sure had to go through a ton of growth to become Super Saiyans, right guys?
This is also ignoring how Goku and Vegeta got Super Saiyan 2 off screen by training in between the Cell Saga and Buu Saga. What was the wait for that? What did you forget that happened in the series?
You never see it come
Just no. All you have to do is put all the keys in your back and hunch over and no, I don't want to hear it.
So, like, are we going to completely ignore the fact that when Kale actually tried the tingly back thing for the first time, she failed? And making this sound far easier than the anime shows it to be.
I don't want to hear this whole, oh wait, Nate, this is a different universe. They're more evolutionized. They're more complex. No, they're not. They're not.
You still there, bud?
Because if they were, how come, okay, how come do their Super Saiyans look the same as Earth, as Universe 7 Super Saiyans?
I mean, they're still the same race. They're all Saiyans. Just say it.
Anyway, just because there are similarities between them and the Universe 7 Saiyans, that doesn't mean they can't have differences genetically. Half Saiyans have different genes than full-blooded Saiyans, but the Super Saiyan forms of Half Saiyans look pretty much the same as the Super Saiyan forms of Full Saiyans. Oh, come on, guys. If you kill each other, I'll have to do 3 times the work.
But Nate, what are you trying to say there? Look, Beerus didn't even know what Super Saiyan was. He was like, where's the Super Saiyan God? So, you would think Universe 6, their Super Saiyan would look totally different.
That
makes...
No! We're not doing this stupid finish each other's sentence thing.
Not knowing about the existence of Super Saiyans wouldn't mean Universe 6 Super Saiyans look different. Where's the correlation in what you just said?
So just like the rest of this video, this is completely irrelevant. Huge surprise.
Then what we got was Universe 7. If they're so advanced, look at them. If they're so advanced, look at them. Why do they look like that? They're scrawny, they're linky, they look more, they look more barbaric.
You do know what barbaric means, right? Savagely cruel, unsophisticated, brutal. I honestly can't see how any other of the Universe 6 Saiyans can be seen as that. Heck, you said yourself that the Saiyans are scrawny.
And even if you meant barbaric as in primitive, their designs don't even look all that primitive to begin with. We got armor for Kaba, a tank top and skirt for Kale, and baggy pants for the belly dancer Caulifla. So question, how is it primitive exactly?
Also, scrawny apparently equals primitive. Okay then, guess that means that people in real life who are scrawny are apparently primitive.
They look more barbaric. Heck, what's his name? Cabbage is the only one wearing armor. The other girl, she looks like a, what's her name, Cauliflower? She looks like a freaking belly dancer.
Wow, I swear we've heard that before. We're trapped in the Izanami or something.
No, we're just expecting Real Talk to not repeat himself.
I Love a Genie, I Heart Genie, or whatever garbage that show was. And you got Broly with tits over there. That's the only why people care about that loser.
Don't you just love it when people project the reason why people like a character onto others? I know I do.
And these DBZ retards, like Seth the Programmer. Hello, Seth. I know you still watch my videos from time to time. I seen your Android 18 rant and the debunk. I see that your fans start to turn on you.
Well, this just came out of nowhere. I know this video is unscripted, but for the love of comedy, switching topics this badly causes enough whiplash to make somebody a masochist.
Even when DBZ characters win on Death Battle, you still complain.
Well, analyzing is still a thing. Observing the battles themselves and pointing out any flaws in the research or battle. Anyway, since it looks like the rest of the video is going to be complaining about stuff unrelated to what he's ranting about, I think we're done here.
You know, I'll play along.
Oh, well, you guys have fun with that. I'll go home.
Fuck that, you're not going anywhere. If Kirby and I are still going to be subjected to this, so are you, so sit your fluffy ass down.
So, the video that you brought up is Android 18 versus Captain Marvel. Let's talk about that, since whether or not a DBZ fan would be happy that a character from DBZ won, they can still have issues with research errors that Death Battle made. Primarily, how they made Android 18 capable of absorbing energy like Androids 19 and 20, even though she can't do that. And, fun fact, that's one of Seth's points against the Death Battle.
It is never stated or implied that 17 or 18 can absorb energy like the way 19 or 20 can. And I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of fucking obvious because they don't have a fucking red zit on their hands.
Legitimate errors in research are worth pointing out, and considering how even Ben Singer of Death Battle himself admitted to the mistake, I think that's a sign that DBZ fans criticizing a Death Battle where a DBZ character wins isn't as pointless as you make it out to be.
Spoiler, he's still complaining. Because why? He has nothing better to do. All he does is debunk videos. He's gotten to the point where he can't make any original content anymore. Okay? He can't make any original content because no one would give a crap about his content.
Yeah, all he does is make debunking videos, which is why he has content like Versus Battles, discussion videos about series outside of Dragon Ball, the Stronger Than You Think videos. Oh, and speaking of those videos, if all he did was debunking videos because no one would watch his content if he did anything else, explain why the non-debunking videos Seth put out that came out prior to this round are either on par or even higher in terms of viewership and reception with his debunking videos. Actually, there's a future title for Seth, Why Real Talk Stupidity is Greater Than You Think.
Dragon Ball Super is doing a worse job than GT. And you know why? You know why it's so bad? You know why it's so worse than GT? Because Toriyama is the driving force behind all of this.
Let's not make any comparisons about the two shows' writing, fight scenes, characters, you know, things that are actually signs of a shonen's quality. It's assumption that nobody's keeping Toriyama in check is the reason why Super is worse than GT. That's one of the weakest reasons you could give for why Super is bad. In fact, for almost all of the video, your reasons for why something in Super is bad was that it hasn't given you what you want, which is utterly pathetic.
Number 10, Manaphy. Manaphy is going to be tempting to use because you can get it for free. What was once a pretty much unobtainable Pokemon by anybody that didn't want to spend 40 bucks on Pokemon Ranger. I did, because Pokemon Ranger was my first DS game. It was mad fun. But for those of you poor souls who couldn't just afford Pokemon Ranger, the legacy, the greatness that you missed out, you also missed out on Manaphy. Was Manaphy all that great? No. Especially when your cousin takes the Pokemon from you and then restarts the game without realizing how special the Pokemon is. It's quite tragic, but...
So, call this pedantic if you will, but I'm not a fan of the way this video is structured. You go on a lot of side tangents in the middle of a point, and while that can make the video seem more genuine at times, it also leads to a moment where we're just sitting here going,
Oi! Get on with it!
I'll admit, at the end of the day, this complaint is a subjective hang-up, so you're free to take it or leave it if you wish, though it might be something you want to consider for future videos.
Hey, now we're all getting it for free, and a lot of you can be tempted to use it, but it's a mythical Pokemon, alright? Do you really want to go through the game with the mythical on your team and just go through it that easily? Also, you pretty much get a free Fion with Manaphy, so that's like 2 for the price of 1.
Well, you just gave good reason why people would be tempted to use Manaphy. A lot of players weren't able to use it because it's a precise method to get one. Heck, I had to skip Gen 4, so I never got to use Manaphy at all, save for when they gave all the at the time available mythicals in Gen 6.
Even then, there are people out there who like breaking games with legendary Pokemon early on, and curb stomping every other trainer's Pokemon to fulfill a power fantasy would still be a valid reason for wanting to use a Pokemon.
Also, your argument that you could use Fiona as Bucket since it has inferior stats and will never evolve, so no one would use it unless they were challenging themselves. That or they're just masochists.
Ah yes, those base 80 stats across the board, a power only rivaled by the unstoppable Glalie.
I mean, Ash is beating a Tang and a Charizard in the Hoenn League, so I'd rather use that instead.
Personally, I take Hammer's Riolu. That thing could suplex an Emboar.
And personally, I'd rather not think of best wishes.
Is Fion that great? No, but hey, Manaphy's not even going to do too much, but hey, if we're all using Manaphy in our playthroughs, it's going to be kind of boring, so just keep it in your box. Maybe you can use it around the second or third time. Who knows?
Wait, so you admit neither of them are that great, yet you still acted like using them on your team would turn your run into a cakewalk. If you don't think either of them are going to be doing that much, then why would it be a problem for people to use them during their first run?
Number 9, other starter Pokemon. Now, I'm not going to be so rude and say, hey, box your own starter. You're kind of forced to use one of the 3. Of course, you do have the option to box them, but hey, when you're giving to them just like that, who really wants to box them? You know, you're first, it's a little special in the heart. But we did see Torchic running around with Lucas and Dunn in Amity Square, and that makes me think, dang, are we really getting starter Pokemon, other starter Pokemon in the Eternal Underground? Maybe. And if we are, I better not see a single one of you people use starter Pokemon besides the main starters in your playthrough. Do you really want to go through the game that easily? Now that the experience share is on full and your experience can be like divided between the whole team no matter what, do you really want to take on Cynthia with another starter Pokemon? Make it that much easier for yourself?
So, even if we ignore that some people like breaking games, the starters aren't even that broken. Sure, their base stats are decent all around, and their normal abilities are helpful in a pinch, but most games have other fire, water, and grass-type Pokemon that are better than the starters in certain aspects. For example, Mantine and Milotic have better special bulk than any of the previous water starters, Floatzel outspeeds all of them, and has better physical attack than Blastoise, and Gyarados has better attack than Blastoise or Swampert. The main reason they end up being your ace is because you get them at the very beginning of the game, which means they'll likely be the highest level in your party and have the most EVs unless you switch them out with another Pokemon. But even shoving all of that aside, you give the Sinnoh starters a pass because
you're kind of forced to use one of the 3. Of course, you do have the option to box them, but hey, when you're given to them just like that, who really wants to box them? You know, you're first. It's a little special in the heart.
Well, by that logic, what about all the people who didn't start with Gen 4 and grew up really attached to the first Pokemon they saw from other generations? Like, if someone wants to use the starter they grew up with, I don't think a lack of challenge would really matter since their choice is based off sentimental value.
Come on now, you have the hardest champion right there in front of you, and you want to make it easier for yourself. SMH, bro, shake my head. I can't believe you people. You gotta go through it as tough as possible.
Who died and made you the arbiter of fun?
Also, even with the second starter, Cynthia's team has a wide variety of type coverage and has a very high level gap between her and the previous Elite Four members. Sure, a second starter could make things a bit easier, but unless you specifically prepare for Cynthia, it's not going to be a cakewalk.
Number 8, Rose Raid.
How dare you?
Does that mean I can't use you as a co-op partner?
How dare you?
Here's a Pokemon that doesn't have a category like the other 2 that we mentioned. Rose Raid. It's just a generic grass-type Pokemon. But the thing is, it's the generic grass-type Pokemon, a Sinnoh. It ain't even technically a Sinnoh Pokemon. Well, it is, but, you know, Roselia comes from Hoenn. Its pre-evolution and post-evolution are from Sinnoh, so I guess it's more Sinnoh than anything. But that's why it's the most generic grass-type Sinnoh Pokemon. Everyone that wants a grass-type that doesn't use Turtwig as a starter uses Rose Raid.
So here's where we get into a consistent problem with the rest of the list, where he says that we shouldn't use a Pokemon purely because it's generic, and ignores all the reasons why it's used in the first place. First of all, as a first-stage evolution, Badoo is easily accessible early game, so you get it really early on. It's also decently fast and has a special attack stat that makes it hit like a truck, as well as having a good special defense stat, which means it can take some hits. So here are all these good reasons to use Roserade, but oh no, it's generic, so I guess these good aspects about it are just null and void.
And you know, they could just really like Roserade.
Are you insinuating that someone could just like a Pokemon and not base their team around what someone else thinks? Blasphemy!
There are other options you got, such as Wormadam. Okay, not the best one, I understand, but Wormadam does exist. You ever consider using Tangrowth? That's an evolution of a grass type. That's an evolution of Tangela, and it's there. Leafeon is there as well. Leafeon's pretty pog. Abomasow's there, which a lot of people use. Tropius is also there. Carnivine if you want to be a little gimmicky, I guess. And on top of that, there's going to be so many others in the underground as well.
Yeah, let's just ignore that some of these Pokemon have different roles than Roserade, like how Leafeon is a physical sweeper and Tangrowth is a wall.
Let's also ignore how most of these Pokemon are much harder to get than Roserade. Wormadam has to be found via honey trees, which will have you waiting for hours on end for a chance to get a Burmy. That is, if you even get a Burmy instead of a Combi or something. And even if you do, it has to be a female for it to evolve into Wormadam. Abomasnow doesn't appear until Snowpoint City, at which point you are 6 going on 7 gym badges into the game. And in the case of the original games, Tangrowth and Tropius weren't even in the games until Platinum, and Leafeon wasn't available until post-game. Sure, they might be easier to get in the remakes with the underground being a thing, however, you're criticizing Roserade for being a generic choice when it was the easiest accessible grass type at the time.
Number 7, Dialga and Palkia. All you noobs out there who want to use your I can't believe I said noobs. Who want to use your legendary Pokemon, the mascot legendary Pokemon, to run through the Pokemon League? Nah. Are you crazy? No, don't do that. What are you trying to do for yourself? Are you even trying to have fun? What fun is it taking the legendary Pokemon and just running through the Elite Four? It's not just Dialga and Palkia, alright? You got access to Cresselia and the 3 Lake Guardians. All of these Pokemon, all 6 of them. Bro, you can run through the Elite Four with a whole team of legendaries if you really tried. With Manaphy and the mascot and the 4 Pokemon I just mentioned, you got a team of mythical legendaries. But if you do that, you're no fun. You're just no fun. You're just what are you trying to do?
Wow, you really are the fun police.
Oh, heaven forbid someone want to use the legendaries that got to help defeat the league during the end of their playthrough. I mean, why would any kid want to use the big legendary on the box they bought the game for?
It's not like the player just saved the world from Cyrus and getting that legendary is like a reward for doing so. And besides, if the player got to the Elite Four, they should be allowed this kind of advantage.
Number 6, Floatzel. Here's the generic water type of the region. Now, Floatzel is a pretty cool Pokemon, not gonna lie. Roserade was too, of course, but Floatzel is it's much more used than Roserade, I would say. And this makes even less sense because Sinnoh actually has good water type Pokemon at its disposal. Peep, you got Gastrodon, Gyarados, Wishcash, Quagsire, Azumarill, Lumineon, which is pretty dope. I don't know how it is in battle, but it's pretty dope. Milotic, Vaporeon, oh my god, you got options. You got options, and this is excluding the Pokemon that we'll probably be able to get in the underground. Water type is the most abundant type ever. Always. How are you going to always use the same Pokemon?
Because it's really fast. I mean, the only other choice for a water type physical sweeper is Gyarados, who only has 81 speed compared to Floatzel's 115. Oh, and its pre-evolved form Weasel is easier to use than Magikarp, who needs help to level up.
In fairness, Lumineon is another water type with base 100 speed, but its attack is a lot worse. So if you want a water type that hits hard and outspeeds, Floatzel's the best option you got, and if you want to be sure to hit first.
Number 5, Lucario. Now I know, Ash has Lucario in the anime, you're tempted to use one yourself. But let me tell you, Ash has a Pikachu, Gengar, Dracovish, Sirfetch'd, and Dragonite. You're not copying that whole team into your game, alright? There's no way you can be Ash Ketchum. It's not possible.
Or they could just use it because Ash looks cool and aren't using a complete Journeys team. Even then, Ash has been to Sinnoh and used Pokemon from that region as well, so a player could totally mix and match for an Ash Sinnoh team.
Though that's assuming the player wants to be like Ash and doesn't want to use Lucario because of the unique Fighting Steel typing, along with its stats being a fast mix attacker, or crazy thought, because they like it. Especially since it was a fan favorite since its introduction, but we'll get there.
Riley gives you the egg for Riolu. You want to use Lucario because it gives it to you? It's too easy. We've done it before. We've all done it. Why do you want to do it again? Why?
Assuming everyone used Lucario in all their Sinnoh playthroughs, I for one tried using Lucario in Diamond and it didn't work out, and I've only used Lucario mostly for Unova and Kalos playthroughs.
Or, to use my own personal example, when I got the egg from Riley, I already had a full team of Pokemon since, you know, you get the egg before fighting the 6th gym, and I didn't really feel like going out of my way to level grind or level 1 Pokemon to level 20 and 30. And given my partner's statement, I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt that way given how late that Riolu came into the game.
Knock one up for Black and White 2 and X and Y and you get rid all around the first gym, or you can take the one that Karina offers you. Unlike this guy, I'm not going to tell players what to do.
But even if absolutely everyone did this, why is it a bad thing they'd want to go through it again in the remakes? Especially since Diamond and Pearl came out almost 15 years ago. So anyone who hasn't replayed those games for a while could want to raise the Riolu again in order to feel nostalgic.
Is that kind of imitation they invented lawsuits for?
Number 3, number 2, number 1. Garchomp, Luxray, Staraptor. I ain't seeing anybody, you hear me? I ain't seeing anybody use more than one of these Pokemon on a single one of their teams, alright? Not gonna, I better not see it. No. I understand, you might have to use one of them, perfectly reasonable. I get it. You try to use any more than one of these 3? Oh boy. You and I, we're gonna have a talk, alright? We're gonna have a talk for sure.
You are not your audience's dad. Stop acting like you are.
If I wanted to get lectured on what I should do with Pokemon, I'd go back to Smogon forums.
When you have so many Pokemon accessible to you, you want to use the same generic 3 Pokemon that every goddamn person has used on their team till this point.
So, ignoring how we have no indication of how this poll was conducted, I don't think 59, 49, and 34% are everyone. In Garchomp's case, less than half, actually. Also, no duh, Staraptor and Luxray are some of the most commonly used Pokemon because they're both early game Pokemon. They're some of the first Pokemon you find, and they also have access to HMs, namely Fly and Strength. They also both pack Intimidate, so using both of them on the team is a pretty good strategy since you can switch in and out between them to cripple the enemy's attack stat. And both of them have over 120 base physical attack, so they're heavy hitters as well.
Literally, Sinnoh was just your starter, Garchomp, Luxray, Staraptor, and then either Floatzel, Rapidash, or Roserade. The 2 that you didn't have the typing of, the 2 that your starter wasn't the typing of. That's it. This is the most common team in all of Diamond and Pearl. And you want to replicate it when there's more options this time? Boy, I'm gonna have a word with you. You better not catch me in those streets seeing you with a team with more than one of these 3 Pokemon. I don't even know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do something.
Behold the all-seeing hybrid hero. He will look at your brilliant Diamond and Shine Pearl teams and he will judge you for your sins.
Honestly, this tone here is the main reason I don't like this list overall. If this list was called Top 10 Overused Pokemon in Diamond and Pearl and was just talking about how annoying it was to see them in people's playthroughs all the time, then I'd be mostly fine with this video. But instead, it's a Top 10 Pokemon You Shouldn't Use list. And not for them being difficult to use or anything, but just because you're personally sick of seeing these generic choices. In which case, why even bother to use the starter at all? Sure, you said they're fine because, oh, they're the first Pokemon you get, but that goes against literally every other time you just ignored every positive aspect these Pokemon have and just went, don't use them because generic. Which is the last thing people should focus on when making a team.
Hybrid, you want to know my team for Brilliant Diamond? My team will have Infernape because it's my favorite of the Sinnoh starters thanks to the anime. Oh, and post note, I was originally going to pick Luxray, but I ended up going with Electivire since it's a Brilliant Diamond exclusive. Roserade for its type coverage, mainly because I never used one before. Garchomp, who I only started lucking using after my first playthrough of Platinum. And Gardevoir, since it's a really good special attacker to balance out the offense of my team. Yes, I'm using several entries on your list because I like most of these Pokemon, which would be a good reason for people to use them a lot. They like the Pokemon. So for you to go around telling people they shouldn't be using Pokemon they like for reasons like being generic or they'll make the game too easy, it comes off as gatekeeping. People have every right to use these overused pigs just as much as you have every right to not use them. If anything, you're limiting what your viewership can use since they may feel pressure to not go with really good Pokemon just because you're preaching you won't want to see them use these mons. Simply put, this comes off as arrogant. As if you thinking being a big name PokeTuber gives you a right to say things like this. Makes me glad I'm not sensitive to you because I don't want to feel like I'm wrong for using common big Pokemon simply because I like them. My advice is this: don't go around telling people what they can or can't do just because you want to go against the grain. Try to understand different perspectives for players, and don't assume they'll use a Pokemon just because it'll break the game or they want to reuse a team they already used. Everyone's different. Let them play the game however they want.